The goal is actually not to bring your whole self to work.
Psst, all that advice that you're getting sucks.
Executive presence is a demonstration of wanting power as opposed to an expression of power.
Nobody talks to a puppy the same way they talk to their boss. That's not how human beings work.
So in the pursuit of polish, we polish our humanity right off of us.
You're polishing the edges. That is where the power lies.
Balance is a verb.
Break some rules, friends.
Hello and welcome to the Unlock Lab. I am so glad you're here. I already know this is going to be a fucking awesome conversation. I probably shouldn't be swearing, but it's going to be a hella good conversation. I'm still swearing. That's because I'm so excited that what we have a conversation with Vital Voice Training. And founders Casey, Erin, Clark, and Julie Fogh are here with me. And the reason why this is special is because, first of all, we've been friends and colleagues, and we've helped each other out on our respective businesses for years. These are the ladies behind the support around my keynote talks. Like, they've helped me tremendously in bringing my content forward to the world. So, I'm glad you're here, because at the end of the day, there's so much breadth that I know that we're going to cover here. But really why I brought these ladies to talk to you today about on the Unlock Lab is because at the way that I see it, and I know you guys are going to introduce Vital Voice Training and what you do, but the way that I see it is your deepest passion is about helping people own and share their authenticity in a way that honors their game, and their way of doing things, and not the conditioned way, and not the way that we've been told for centuries and centuries, right? So that's just part and parcel. So I'm excited because on the Unlock Lab, I'm here to support leaders in getting to the next level. And the work that you do is a big part of how leaders can get to the next level, which is how you're showing up and how you're sharing your ideas and how you're influencing folks with the words that you say and the way that you carry yourself and all the technical pieces underneath that. So I've droned on long enough. Let me just shut up and pass it over to you, because I would love for you to introduce Vital Voice Training as well as yourselves individually, and share a little bit about who you are and the perspective that you bring to this work.
Oscar, we're so excited to be here. This is delightful. We have been business buddies for such a long time, but before that, I think even we were friends, and we met through my husband, actually, who worked with you long ago. And it's just funny how those webs of connections grow over time. But Vital Voice Training was born in 2014 during what we like to call the great moral panic over vocal fry, which is when everyone was talking about how annoying and unserious women's voices are, and all of the things that they needed to do to fix themselves in order to be taken seriously. This was also sort of the height of girl boss culture and hustle culture, and you have as many hours in the day as Beyonce, and all of these. I think we were very motivated at that time point to succeed, to mitigate any of our problems, to be in this personal development land. So we hit a zeitgeist. We hit a zeitgeist where people were feeling particularly ambitious. But I think we hit it with a message of, psst, all that advice that you're getting sucks. Like, it does not actually help you show up. It does not actually, like the say X words in Y tone of voice and you will get Z outcome kind of advice that is everywhere still is not how any of this works. It's you and I and Julie, all three of us could say the same words in the same tone of voice in the same room and get different outcomes because of the bodies we walk in, the history we walk in with. We cannot honor the reality of communication without honoring context and without honoring bias, without acknowledging that bias exists. It is real and it's important to talk about. So women's voices are facing this disproportionate level of communication criticism, of often very unsolicited feedback. And we wanted to jump in with a different way to get at that, a different way to understand that. And that was through our backgrounds as actors, the tools of theater. And I want to throw it to Julie so she can kind of give the overview of what the tools of theater allow us to do.
So the thing that, like Casey was saying, context is so important to communication. Everything that makes you, you makes your voice, and then that voice hits context. And that's what communication is. Acting in the tools of theater really are context analysis tools. They are very much taking into account that the parts of ourselves that we bring forward are meant to meet the context we are in, which is partly why formulas and scripts don't tend to work. But getting to know your own instrument and how it responds in all of these different contexts is, in fact, incredibly empowering, as we both recognize that our voice is not just the narrow habitual range that most of us live in, nor does it mean that we have to put on some big giant mask and pretend we're somebody else. Like the pond is full without having to add other people, pretending to be other people onto it. The tools of theater for me have always been fascinating because they allow for the complexity of human behavior. They allow for, I remember talking to my dad years ago, trying to figure out some sort of movable map, like how do we, like quantum physics or something like that. The tools of theater allow for that because they aren't trying to put anything in a box. They're really just explaining how those fundamental moments of impact on each other work. So that's what we've spent, the last dozen years or so doing, is both translating our theater training so it is helpful to those in the, non-acting world. Because so often I've heard somebody say, well, I was told to take an improv class. Do you think that'll help? Like, well, maybe not. The tools of theater, absolutely. But throwing people in these ponds to just do acting stuff with no context, back to that word, isn't necessarily helpful when you don't know how to integrate it and you don't know how to repeat it. So that's a large part of the work that we have done, in addition to the fact that we love solving unsolvable problems. So anything right now, communication, executive presence, all of these huge, even authenticity, huge topics that we see, tons of thought leadership on LinkedIn. Our first instinct is to argue. My first instinct is to argue. And so we've also spent a lot of time getting underneath the hood of some of the myths of communication that are really, really powerful, but also really, really restrictive when it comes down to it. So I come to this work as a recovering shy kid that I guess I'm learning more about neurodiversity and special interests, and I think human behavior might be my special interest. And have just absolutely loved the experience of getting to see people connect to their whole voice. Like Tosca, working with you, that moment that you just drop into that vein, that river that's like the unus of you and the power that comes with that. And knowing that looks different for all of us. And we don't learn it the way we learn other skills. There is no repetition and drills and that sort of thing. It's different. So that's me. And
yes, no, you guys you articulated it so beautifully. And what I love about your approach, right, is you take the theater and you take this deep research and this deep understanding of what's going on in culture and like what are leaders facing today, and how do you guide folks into their authenticity while also recognizing there is a sandbox and that word context again, right? So, for you who's watching or listening, right? And I know the work that Vital Voice training does, you're really focused on, especially the women who face double, triple whammies and double standards and all the things. But I know that this stuff is universal in terms of, right? So I just want to say that up front, because if anyone's listening who's like, I don't know if this is for me, honey, trust me, it's for you. I don't care what your gender is. And that, what I think is, it's funny. It's like, I think the work that we all do, like there's no formulas, right?
No.
It's right. And so this conversation I know is going to be in such flow because it's dynamic and everybody is going to take something different from it. So I will say that to say for you who's listening, right? There's going to be stuff that deeply resonates. Take it. There's going to be stuff that you don't yet understand. Listen again. I just know that that's how this is going to go, you know? So just as before we really dive deep, as if we weren't already, I want to actually ask a fun fact of you both because I love you both, and I just want this audience to get to know you a little bit more. They know about the theater backgrounds now and some of the other pieces, but yeah, just like what do you want to share with the audience today about yourselves before we dive in?
I think that one of the fun facts that captures so much of my personality is that I sang my first solo in front of a public audience when I was 4 years old at church. And there are sort of a couple of things about that matter and that tell you a little bit more, which is one, I asked to do it. I was like, I'm ready, Dad. Put me in, coach. Like, put me up on stage. Number two, I have a very distinct memory of arguing with my father over the lyrics of this song. I was absolutely determined that the line was one more. And he was like, no, it's not. It's one Lord. This was in church. I think I sang it my way. And number three, when I finished singing, the church clapped for me, and the pastor, who was my godfather, came up on stage and he said, "Thank you so much, Casey. You did a great job." And I think my response was something like, "Thanks, I know." And I left.
Yes.
So I say all that to say, God bless the confidence of a 4-year-old. I think I represent a type of person who is perhaps outwardly confident. I don't think many people look at me in my life and assume that I am anything other than like pretty comfortable in my own skin, pretty comfortable being the center of attention, pretty comfortable with all of that stuff. And I still have my insecurities. I still have the 15 years of my acting career post college was so much about confronting my inner director, my inner critic, being able to show up to an audition knowing that I was enough, that I didn't have to prove myself. I didn't have to prove how good of a singer I was, or prove how cool I was, or charming, or easy to work with, or any of that stuff. Like, I could just show up and do my thing and take the action. And so that's it, and it's weird because it's almost like coming back to the confidence of that 4-year-old before she met the world and the world told her that she was a little too much fairly often. So yeah, I think for the people who come to us who maybe are used to hitting their marks, being, a perfectionist, working really hard to like do this right, but feeling like that's become a little bit of a straitjacket for them, we're really good at helping you find your inner rebel a little bit. You're the person who can free yourself from that straitjacket and show up with more creativity and more joy and more self-acceptance and self-compassion, and still be a really high achiever at the same time.
Yes, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. It's awesome. I love Julie's reaction too, because she's like, I'm sure she's heard this a few times, but she gets excited every time, I can tell.
I have so enjoyed this partnership, this dozen-year partnership that we've had, because I very much come from the Pacific Northwest, and I come from, in particular, a family that has deep Scandinavian roots, and really was raised in this environment of don't call attention to yourself in ways that I have been unpacking for years. And it's kind of led to a whole journey of what visibility means, and what do we owe each other, and what are we allowed to put out into the world, and just swirling lots of different topics. But for me, getting to watch somebody who does it differently, was raised differently, like thinks about these things differently, kind of combined with our shared brain at this point, yes. I do find genuinely delightful. And has made my life bigger and better as a result of being able to, work in partnership with somebody who is so, I'm going to say fearless. I know you just said confident on the outside, but I have known Casey long enough to know like the bravery is just, it's gorgeous. So yes, I am delighted by these stories.
Well, and what I love about what you both shared, right, is that you're in the work. all the time with yourselves. And I think
Yes.
that's always what makes, right? That's what makes people good at what they do, is because it's not because they've mastered it. It's because they are continually mastering it every day. So like, I just want to honor that. And that, and it's rare. It's rarer than we think that the people that are teaching the work are also in the work. And thank you for that, obviously, transparency and authenticity, as I know that is who you are. That's who you both are. So,
oh wait,
yeah.
Julie, we still need a fun fact from you. And I feel like if you need a prompt, I have so many prompts for you, Julie, because
Yes,
again,
please.
multiple year partnership. I mean, I'm thinking about yacht rock. I'm thinking about Prince. I'm thinking about white chocolate. I'm thinking about drag queens. Right.
So I will give that fun fact, since I laughed back in grad school. My dear friend Rotimi Agbabiaka, who's an actor in the Bay Area, and I and another woman, Nicole Brewer, all just bonded like, trauma bonds, and we're deep love, and we are still wonderful friends to this day. But Fridays and Saturday nights after the theater building would close, Rotimi and I would grab a bottle of champagne and head to the movement lab and turn on music and dance for, hours and hours and hours. And we called ourselves White Chocolate Cashmere. That was our little 2-person dance troupe. And it just one of the most fun, playful, silly, but also kind of glamorous, and taught me that glamour can have a certain sassy audacity to it. It's not, stoic and dry. It's definitely got some, movement attitude.
See, this is what I love about Julie, because Julie, the way that she talks about her background, growing up shy, Pacific Northwest, the Seattle freeze, kind of all of these descriptors that I think could put her in a certain box of like the shy girl or the introvert or whatever. Meanwhile, she has this full out rock star side of her that I get to see come out, that lucky people get to see come out, and that our clients get to see come out. And she's so good at helping other people bring that side, bring out that bravery, because everybody's got that. I think as much as all of us have our different complex relationships with the idea of visibility, some of us need it so much that we try really, really, really hard to grasp at it. And we were just talking about an awkward networking event and experiences at that very recently. Some people tend to hide. They tend to want to disappear. They want to observe, but they don't want to be central. Every human being, I think, does have a real need to be seen and heard. I think that's a fairly trite way of saying that, but like, it's true. We need to be seen and heard. We need to be witnessed. And there is a practice of letting yourself be witnessed in discomfort, in imperfection, in fierceness, in glamour, in like claiming those sides of you. Because for some people, like, they might actually be really comfortable with it, like, oh, I'm the awkward, quirky one, and that's fine. That's defined me. Meanwhile, they've got this secret, glamour puss side, and we've never seen that before, because that's the thing that feels dangerous as opposed to the imperfection. This is what the gift of, back to the frameworks and the training of theater, gives us, is access to different sides of ourselves, access to different means and modes of expression that are outside, again, of what Julie said, that habitual way that we show up, that is based on the rewards and punishments that we've gotten throughout our lives. Like, what if we took it outside of that and explored and figured out what else there is for you to offer? Because there's so much. We guarantee it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You're making me think of, right, that in the workplace, right, bringing out those different sides has historically been viewed as a liability, right? It's been viewed as not the right thing, or you're not going to garner the respect, or, that people have this tendency to want to control like that, how they're showing up and do it in a way that's been prescribed, or do it in a way that they see other people doing it and therefore it's accepted.
Yep.
So I'm curious for folks who know that they're showing up, right? And they know that they're not showing up with all the parts present, with the quirkiness, with the humor, with the whatever parts that they're leaving at the door, because for the past several decades, that's how they've gotten along. What do you say? What do you say to that person in terms of, like, if you want your leadership to be more effective, if you want your influencing to land, like, how do you even enter into that conversation? Because there's a lot of safety in what we know has worked. It may not have been the thing that's catapulted the leader yet, right? But it's been the safe bet. Like, what do you do to push them to say there's something different here to try for you to see a new level of success that you don't even know is possible?
For me, it starts, like, the core of this is recognizing that the goal is actually not to bring your whole self to work. That is, I think that expectation has gotten a lot of people really messed up in their heads, because they think they're supposed to be just as open and relaxed at work as they are, with the dearest friends. And I don't think our nervous systems are set up that way. So when you're
Nor is
talking
the
about
American workplace.
Yes. So if you're talking about what power is, I've been thinking a lot lately about social hierarchies and the way that we kind of intuitively place ourselves in I'm going to say the right places, the habitual places when it comes to those things, and how if we can step out of that and start working from the hierarchy within, that is where power starts. But that is very different than bring your whole self to work. That is about finding, who am I if I am not, I'm the perimenopause words. If I'm not kissing up, if I'm not doing traditional things that show, I mean, even executive presence is a demonstration of wanting power as opposed to an expression of power from my perspective. Okay,
so wait. So I'm just going to slow down, because I know that you just packed a whole lot in there. Right? So what I'm taking away from this, right, is that it's not about being unfiltered. It's not about, like, let your soul glow. You know what I mean? It's I don't know why that expression just came to me.
Oh my God, but that absolutely sounds like advice that someone would be given. Like, yes. Just show your true self, your real self. Like,
Yeah, but it's what I'm hearing as, like, even the first step is, like, it's about understanding the parts of you and how you can play with them or experiment with them. And I know that's not what you said, but I'm wondering if that's the essence of kind of what you're saying, Julie. Like, understanding more so, like, the pieces of you, and so that you can then make choices. So that you can make choices about what gets leveraged, what dial gets turned down.
Yes, I think that's correct. And I think, like, what we do and how we work in the world of theater and sometimes in dramatic imagination, those kinds of things where we can expand the context that we might show up in, allow us to rehearse that outside of, our jobs, those more formal environments. And I think is a great place to learn to, dive deeply into we contain multitudes. I think when we talk about experimentation, you can do that at home to some degree. Before you bring something in, you can test it out. You can feel how it feels in your body. You can feel what feels good to you. And that's sometimes things that you wouldn't necessarily intellectually know. It takes an embodied practice, like literally, what does this feel like in my body, to play around with.
I want to bring up two very specific tools around this for your audience. So I think it's easy to think of theater and these kinds of practices as, like, oh, we're going to, like, make big out there woo-woo cool choices, or, like, it's going to be quirky or silly, or it's going to be weird or over the top. It can be so subtle. But the difference between walking into a meeting with the internal guise of, God, I hope they listen to me today. And I hope that Chad from sales doesn't interrupt me. And I hope that nobody steals my idea. And my boss told me that I need to speak up more. So I'm gonna speak up more. It's too general. It's not going to get you anywhere. And it's going to activate your nervous system. Now, when we honor our context, when we think about like, what do meetings at this company typically look like? Is this a little bit of a loudest voice wins game? Do I need to cultivate the skill of jumping in, or even, dare I say, interrupting someone so that I can get my voice heard, because that is literally the only way that I'm going to get in? That's a skill to cultivate, like the ability to literally just jump in and say the thing and keep going, as opposed to doing that thing of like, can I please, like right when like that hesitation that happens. The other question that we want our clients to always be asking themselves within specific communication scenarios is, what's my role and what's my goal? What am I here to do beyond just something as generic and useless as speak up more? That doesn't honor, what is this meeting actually about? Like, what are we trying to accomplish here? And what is my role within that specific goal? Like, what parts of myself need to come forward to meet the moment? And for that, I'll use an example that comes up a lot, particularly for our mom clients. I am not a mother. I will say that. I will start with that. But moms have a particular set of skills that they very often, I think, feel like have to remain completely at home. Like, we don't bring those kinds of skills to work. When the reality is that so much of American adulthood is really like, am I mad because of the situation, or am I mad because I need a snack and a nap? Like, am I just like, are people being weird today because of some really complicated intellectual thing that I need to figure out before I add to? Or is everybody just a little on edge because human beings get on edge? Moms get attuned to that kind of thing. And sometimes, like, while we could sidebar a lot on the expectation of emotional caregiving and sort of being the office mom, that is not always a role that we want or need, and is often very much placed on women in the workplace. Momming people as an action is an interesting potential choice within certain situations. Is it always going to work? No, because no choice always works. But like, when you cut yourself off from that as a matter of course, because it's like, well, that part of me isn't appropriate for the workplace. What if it is? And what if nobody needs to know that that's what you're doing? You know, so that helps you access something that feels powerful and feels good to you.
Yeah, I love that you bring this up, because we obviously, like, we tend to compartmentalize, right? This is who I am here. This is who I get to be here.
And that is natural and normal and appropriate.
Yeah. And also we can learn from the strengths that we bring in different environments, and we might be able to use those and grab those, you know?
Absolutely.
And going back to Julie, what you were saying about like walking in and it being embodied, right? And how helpful it is to actually practice, right? And there's a difference between, I'm rehearsing, right? And I'm trying to make this perfect, and I want to step in there and say this exact line, this exact way. There's a difference. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about, right, is that you feel it in your body, and you know that it feels good the way that you're bringing it up. And like a quick example that I'm thinking of with what you shared was, even if let's just say you're networking, like, and you're like, you don't have a role right now, like your leadership role is gone, right? And then it gets difficult. How do I talk about myself? Oh, I can't say that I do XYZ at ABC company. And so, but when you practice how you talk about this phase that you're in, right? Or you practice how you talk about the 3 people that you think you need to let go on the team. And then you know, like, how it feels in that delivery. And then your body, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think your body remembers that. You remember what that energy was, and so that when you do it in the real setting, you're almost like your nervous system is more prepared for that in a way. And you feel better because you knew what it felt like when you did it the way that was honoring what you really meant.
There's definitely some nuance in that, because for me, rehearsal is a living practice. It's engaging with habituating nervous system and emotional states and all kinds of things. And most often we see people coming to us with rehearsal, meaning I've gone over my words over and over and over. And that is basically writing a play that no one else knows their lines for. So when it comes to conversations, there is both, like you said, practicing, but there is also, how do I come in and let all that preparation go so I can really be paying attention to the person I'm talking to? And this actually links back to one of the big rat's nest knots is I've been told I need to speak up more. And I feel like they're really connected. Both of them come down to how we harness attention. And we're not taught harnessing attention. You're told speaking up more is just a matter of you like opening up your mouth and speaking. If you've ever been in a group and done that and had no one respond, you know that that's not what it is. And that's a not just a you problem. That's also a facilitation problem. That's a company culture problem. That is baked in, that it is not all your responsibility in that. So there's a lot you can rehearse, but I go back to balance is a verb. I've been taking Pilates lately, and we talk about, how we find neutral. And my instructor, who I have fallen in love with because she says things like, and it won't stay in that same position. It is the micro adjustments that we do that creates the balance. And that's how it should be. It's not a lock and load. It's a learn to surf. And so that's, you're learning what we can rehearse, what we can't, what we control and what we don't control, and being able to, as Casey likes to say, allocate our resources in a way that isn't, or that's a little bit more specific, because none of us are just made of infinite energy, time, emotions, etc.
Yeah. So I'd love to, give us an example, right? Of what is this, what does that look like? What is a before and after when you do like this work that you guys are talking about, which is so extensive and so like nuanced, right? And I think an example might be helpful to bring it to life, because there's so much underneath how you get to that, right?
Yeah.
How you get from A to B. But what does A to B look like? And I'm not saying the process is linear, just to be clear.
I know you wouldn't dare.
So I'll give you an example from a recent client that we worked with on a big keynote speech. So a keynote is it's a unique set of given circumstances, right? Unlike a conversation or something, you do have a script, perhaps. And part of this process with her was figuring out, what is your relationship with your text going to be? Do you feel more comfortable with a word for word script that you're going to memorize like a one-woman play? Or do you feel more comfortable with a really filled in outline where you know the transitions, but you haven't given yourself like sentences to say correctly, and figuring out that part of it? And then it was her internalizing the text in a lot of different ways. Everybody memorizes things a little bit differently. And then in the rehearsal room, there are the run-throughs where you're imagining the actual audience that you're going to be speaking to and imagining their reactions and thinking about the different verbs that you can play with. Am I provoking them? Am I challenging them? Am I inviting them? Am I beseeching them? Am I this is where we can get really, really specific with language. But the other thing that I love to play with, and this is a great tool for pitches, for presentations, for anything where you have a bit more of a script, is switching up the audience in your mind. So like, what if instead of delivering this speech to a bunch of, type A fabulous college students and alumni of this university, what if you're delivering it to a boardroom full of very serious businessmen? What if you're delivering it to a classroom full of kindergartners? What if you're delivering it as the opening number for the Beyonce concert? Like, when we place ourselves in these different imaginary circumstances, I think that unlocks a new way into the text. And we often use this kind of thing inside corporate workshops where we'll take a piece of text that doesn't change. And we're like, this is your rule. You can't change the text. You have to make that text via your tone, your body language, all of these things that we instinctually do because voice is ideally reflexive. When you place yourself in a really specific imaginary given circumstance, your voice changes. Nobody talks to a puppy the same way they talk to their boss. That's not how human beings work. So I think that that's just one specific example of like what would not serve her is doing it the same way over and over and over again, locking in a particular melody of speech, locking in even particular gestures, although some people do like to choreograph what they do a little bit more. And that's a process we can work with. But that access to that dramatic imagination and challenging yourself to switch it up gives you the freedom then to respond in the moment to what's actually happening and make that transition from prep brain to performance brain.
Ooh, yes. Some of the work I did with Julie is coming back to me now. And my own keynote. And a little bit of what I'm hearing in that is, well, there's a few things, right? Because some of these things are very high stakes, right?
Yes.
And how do we find some play in it? And by playing and by experimenting with this audience or that audience and seeing the contrast of it, I could see how that would help you find like your lane with your audience that feels spot on. I don't know if that's part of it for you, but that's kind of what I was seeing in that approach.
Yeah, I think it's rehearsing in flexibility. It's it's knowing that your voice can do different things and your body can do different things, and that happens really intuitively when you have an action to play, when you have someone to receive your communication and you have an action that you are like, what am I trying to do right now? Back to role and goal. That all of the rest of it follows very intuitively. Like we can rehearse on a very technical level, everything from like prosody and diction and gesture and all of that good stuff. Like that is a way into things. And sometimes that can unlock different things. But like the reflexive, responsive way, the playful way of rehearsing often gets us there without all of that kind of dry, boring, like, and now say it faster, now say it slower, now say it louder, now say it quieter. Like that's kind of boring. Like there's much more fun ways to do it.
Well, this is where I want to talk about intimidate. Casey had mentioned verbs, which I think are such great keys into finding action. So often with women, but also men as well, they will say, well, I want to have power, but I don't want to be intimidating. And my answer is, are you sure? Because intimidation doesn't have to be grotesque. It doesn't have to be something that makes someone else shrink or makes them small. It can be about your own power. I find intimidation or, having that little bit of, I can hold that in my body to be something that play helps us access really beautifully. So we often use monologues when we're trying to get someone to find that intimidation side. We've got a couple ones that we really love because you do got to pump it up and make it bigger. And because a lot of the times our nervous system, which is predictive, looks at us starting to find size and is like, nope, we don't want you to do that. So how do we make it through? Well, we make it through via play. We make it through via practicing high stakes things in low stakes environments. We practice it by finding the character within ourselves. And I think that whole process, which also includes finding your strengths, which includes finding how you do something, like how I cajole is going to be different than how you cajole. It is not a suggestion of something to mimic. It is an actual action that looks different on other people. But I wanted to start with intimidate because I feel like that's I think intimidate has become synonymous with things like unlikable or other things that bring negative criticism bad
Punishment,
things.
cultural punishment.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes, exactly to us. And I don't think that that's true. I think intimidate when you go in with the goal of, I'm going to flatten these people in front of me and I don't give a crap who they are. That is a very different energy than I hold my own power. And if you are intimidated, that is very, very different than me, bullying or doing something inappropriate towards you. But I have to learn to hold that because my nervous system, is going to react if it feels like I'm doing something societally inappropriate. So that's the kind of thing play can be really helpful for.
I'll use another example because I've been using a lot of examples of women and female clients. We had a gentleman come to us who was a CEO, a founder of his company, and just like the sweetest guy, just genuinely nice, like a little nerdy, little soft spoken, and he needed to find a side of himself that could dance in pitch meetings with, big investors, and could run an all hands meeting and get the attention of the room onto him. And we ended up playing with a version of his pitch. I was like, can you give me the supervillain version of this pitch? And he was like, what? Initially, I could see him start to ask why. And I was like, no. Just try it. This is safe space. You know what I mean? Nobody's judging you. Nobody's going to think you're an asshole for doing this. Like, what does it feel like? And what was interesting is that this very dropped in, but also very playful side of him came out that I hadn't seen before. And I was like, I know you thought you were going so far and being so ridiculous, but as your resident outside eye, I can see that would be very welcome in certain circumstances. That's another thing we end up talking to people about a lot is the idea of playing opposites. And this is something that comes up for actors all the time. But I think it's helpful as we're thinking about this idea of like strategically bringing different parts of yourself forward. Like, I am someone who shows up inside of rooms with a lot of baked in warmth. I think my sort of my general attitude is like warm, approachable, fun, energy, which might mean that I have a little bit of extra space to play with the opposite of that, which is like deadly serious, or like, I'm going to pin you to the wall with my intimidating stare or whatever, because I come in with this sort of built-in blanket of warmth and approachability. But the same thing can happen if you're like, I know I know that like one of my core attributes, and I'm imagining someone else here. Like if one of your core attributes is like logical, intellectual, like it is just so dead obvious that you are a smart person and kind of nothing you do is going to take away from that essential quality. Maybe you have room to play with a little bit more silliness or like a weird metaphor or something that maybe isn't like I'm Mr. Logical now or I'm Ms. Logical right now. Like you get to play with something that's different from that because you've bought yourself the space just by who you are naturally.
Yeah. And, I think this is such an important topic for leaders anybody, right? But leaders who want to have influence, leaders that want to level up and, have more impact or get to that next opportunity. It's like, these are skills.
Yes.
That I don't think always come to the forefront as a game changer, as something to think about as a game changer. But you're looking at it from both perspectives, right? The perspective of what's within you that can get unleashed, that can open up, that can connect in a better way, in a more effective way with who it is you're trying to influence. Because that's at the end of the day, right? I think the work that you do is like, how do you get the things done that you want to get done? Whether it's that presentation, that sales thing, whether it's getting on stage and convincing folks to do something differently or having an interview and letting people know what you're all about and that you're the perfect fit for that opportunity. Right. Like, and these what you're saying about play is so antithetical, I think, to a lot of these environments, right? What? Like, but you're playing before you get into these environments, right? Like you're playing so that you can see where you can stretch and where you can go and what the impact of that could be.
I think there's also play in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I've been calling it the let's dance twinkle in the eye, where it's like, what if we show up inside deadly serious situations that have really high stakes, still with the attitude of let's dance, let's play. I can respond. I am so settled in myself, in my self-knowledge, in the fact that no matter what happens, whatever comes out of this moment, like I am me and I am okay. And I am, so then with that in mind, what if I can be flexible? What if I can, as opposed to the sort of weird, neutral, calm, like hyper control version,
there's a layer of
better.
There's a layer of this that is also really important because we've been talking a lot about actions. We've been talking about play. We've been talking about things you can do, because having something to do when you're communicating with somebody means you're not getting caught in something we call primal objectives, which is when your actions are dictated by your nervous system state. Your actions are coming from fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and you aren't engaged in actual communication at that point because your brain's in a little bit of a freak out. So this allows you to, rather than just say, don't be nervous, or, something equally useless, we get out of nervous system activation by what we're putting our attention on by doing these actions. So there's a manifold reason to be playing with this stuff, like in this embodied action forward way that, again, is rooted in play, because that allows us to, even in the most serious of situations, recognize that might not necessarily mean the tactic to get through it is the most serious tactic that we have.
Yes. And I think, you both have said this in different ways, right? Which is that when you show up for whatever the thing is, that you're able to be present and be able to receive information and adjust and respond accordingly, versus here's my script, here's my one note, here's, and that is really, I don't know if you see it this way, but doing the prep and doing the practice and doing the play that allows you to show up is really about centering the audience. It's not about centering you and your performance. It's about saying, how can I use what I have? What tools can I bring to the forefront that allow me to connect and reach with this person so that our shared goal, gets achieved?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, I don't know, I guess I'll just shut up right there and say, is that part of how you look at this? Yeah.
You got to get out of your head. That is the number one thing that we see is, especially when the stakes are high, this desire, you mentioned control, to hyper control. And that all comes from the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain. Right. The prefrontal cortex isn't our most powerful connector. It's the place that we can sit and watch ourselves and, I'm going to orchestrate this like a chess match. But voice is actually very, very reflexive to our limbic system and our emotions and a whole lot of other things, which is why we can't just sit there and compose our note changes with vary the tone of your voice. That comes from very specific things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I forgot where that sentence started, so I'm going to leave it right there.
So I mean, when we talk about connection and we talk about influence, one of my favorite models for this comes from a grande dame acting and voice coach named Patsy Rodenburg. And this was a really helpful model for me. I said back at the beginning, outwardly very confident, go in any room and can blah, blah, blah. I come from a long line of theater people and have spent so much time in rooms with theater people. Patsy describes what she calls the 3 circles. So first circle energy being an energy that is very much self-contained. It is like, my ideas get to stay precious inside my own brain and I don't have to put them out in the world. If you're a New Yorker, you ride the subway in first circle. It is the circle of privacy. It also can be the circle of sort of shyness or passive aggressiveness, or sitting back and kind of like, I'm cool. I'm not gonna engage, whatever. Their first circle can be a power move on people who have a lot of baked in power via position, via circumstances. We often talk about Anna Wintour as being a power first circle person, but it's not an energy of connection. On the other end of the spectrum, third circle is those people who are so focused on the out. They're so focused on sort of my communication going toward the other person that it becomes almost a bombardment for your audience. It's the circle of dominance, of aggression. It can also be the circle of like trying really hard, like I'm going to do a good job today, but it's all that energy is just like so outward that we can't receive anything back. So it is in its own way as much of a wall between you and the audience as first circle shyness is. Now, our culture tends to think of third circle energy as what power looks like, that model of like, I'm the big man and I'm going to, dominate, blah, blah, blah. But that does not result in lasting connection. It does not result in the co-creation of a goal, of a movement, of a message, of getting people on your side. It is only control. Second circle is really what we're always striving for. And that is the energy of give and receive. That is the dance. That's why I say like, let's dance, because it's that ability to lead and follow. It's that ability to make adjustments on the fly. It's that ability to observe without getting so caught in the observation that you lose yourself, but also not be so caught in your own head that you disconnect from the person you're talking to. It's a democratic energy, but it is vulnerable because you have to be willing to be affected by what's happening around you and what's going on. So if you're used to staying safe in first circle or used to dominating in third circle, it will feel vulnerable to like right size that connective energy, but that's where the magic happens.
That's a mic drop moment right there. Like the idea of really influence is co-creation, right?
Yeah.
The idea of giving space for what's going to be revealed. And that space might be actual pause and waiting for the response, or, which, especially when we're nervous and like it's high stakes, right? Like we don't want to create space because, right, we just want to be forcing and feeding and that, all that stuff. So, I think that's a beautiful way of helping leaders to say, what can I do differently to get different result?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, are you looking at influence and your presence as something that's co-created, or are you looking at it as something that I have to control and I have to, perfect, in a vacuum? Like, cause those are going to give you very different results. So we're talking a lot about context, and we're talking a lot about the way that our nervous system is definitely involved in this process. And also then there's the actual content, right? And content is king, right? And now I think because we have the chat GBTs of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
That people are using these tools for content and they think this is the answer. And then I perform the thing, and that performance might be written and it might be right, like in the presentation or in the conversation in a one-on-one, whatever. And so I'm curious in the work that you do, right? Because you're not the content experts, but other people are bringing you this content. Like, how do you approach the content piece? Because if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. It doesn't really matter, right? The techniques and the tools. How do you look at that? Because I think people look at this, the AI output as the safe thing, and they should be able to be successful with it because it's the right answer. You know what I'm saying? I know this is like I feel like this is, hopefully it's not too big to kind of tackle, but I think you know what I'm getting at, which is, because it all plays a role in how you're showing up and how you're able to influence.
What I'm about to say is not a commentary on what I think about AI or AI being useful, but what I know is so many times with our clients, they don't realize that the end product is supposed to look like them. It is supposed to be something that is a part of you. It should be recognizably you. And we have this idea when we think of polish or we think of professionalism that it sort of exists outside any of the messiness of being a human. And AI has given people a shortcut into sanding off all of their edges, anything that makes them interesting. Because what makes you interesting is what's outside of consensus. It is the twos. It is the little bumps and whatnot. So in the pursuit of polish, we polish our humanity right off of us. So I think that that is, number one, a danger with using AI. Number two is AI has its own sentence construction that doesn't make any sense to my brain. And it turns out doesn't make a lot of sense to the clients who've written their speeches with ChatGPT or Claude or something like that. How you put together your thoughts is a part of your voice. It's a part of your humanity. So we've found people having a lot of trouble memorizing ChatGPT written scripts, and also have found that one of the crucial things when it comes to memorization, when it comes to how we communicate, how we lead people through ideas, is knowing how ideas connect, knowing the transitions, knowing the route through the journey we want to take people on. And AI doesn't, I don't know if anyone else argues with their AI the way I do, but the journey it wants to go on is its own thing. It's its own, because LLMs are a fill in the blank, what they think the next most possible word is. It's not thinking. It's not. So it can give you conclusions. It can give you transitions. It can give you frameworks that are complete BS. They sound great, but there is no there. I think it really does have to do with this, I'm going to call it fetishization of polish as the goal in any of this. And Casey and I have been having a lot of conversations lately that in this particular time, polish being as cheap and available as it is right now really shows you that it was only ever about scarcity, not even about making yourself a better communicator. And side note, this is one of the reasons I get really inflamed when people give notes like, don't say and think that's it. You've been coached. It means nothing for the communication, the how the message lands. So that's my strong feeling on things we should not be abdicating. Use it for a mirror, use it for brainstorming, use it for, whatever you want to use it for. But you've got to trust that you know how to speak your own words, just fundamentally.
I feel like the mic drop moment is like you're polishing the edges, right? The edges that is the where the power lies. Sorry, I had to pull that out really quick. But Casey, totally. You were about to say something.
No, I think ChatGPT and other LLMs are seductive in their ability to mimic human rhetorical tools in a way that if you listen at a very surface level, read at a very surface level, it sounds good, right? All of the things that I think I see, I mean, certainly the algorithm is serving me what I'm interested in, but like every third post I see on LinkedIn right now is like, I can tell that it's AI because of this particular tell, whether it's the contrastive emphasis or the negative parallelism, like it's not X, it's Y, or it's the rule of three, or it's the short sentences, or the single lines versus long paragraphs. My favorite term for it is still Broetry, which I just think is because it really comes down to this kind of weird Frankensteining of classic rhetorical tools that human beings have been using forever. Honestly, one of the funniest posts that I've seen on this was like, it was a picture of an excerpt from a novel that had the not this, just this framework that we all recognize as ChatGPT. And the note on it was, not you too, Agatha Christie. Like, AI learned from us. These are tools that human beings have been using forever. ChatGPT, and I'm using that as a shorthand for all these LLMs, hoovered up the whole of human output and now can mimic it back to us. But it mimics it back to us without art, without restraint, without, to Julie's very fundamental point, without much there. It can only give you this glimmering framework that sounds good. But if you, and for certain moments in our lives, you know what I mean? Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's fine to like if you're like, oh, but it helps me, write a summary email of a meeting to my, great, awesome. That sounds maybe like the highest and best use, that because your time is better spent elsewhere. But if this matters to you, if what you're going to say matters to you, and if it matters to your audience, then just a shortcut either for your time or just a shortcut that allows you to sound better than you would otherwise, and I'm putting big air quotes around better, it's not, the exchange is not worth what you're giving up, in my very strong opinion.
And while I am not necessarily, people who say they can read other people tend to be wrong on that. And so, I have not as much confidence in saying I can read people, although I am relatively good at that. I do actually have quite a bit of confidence that I can pick up something that's written with AI because there's a prosody. It's not any particular thing I can point to. I was just typing down, I'm like, 5 ingredients, 1 afternoon, 6 steps to the perfect cookie. Like, that's how these posts start. Like, this prosody in it of not just declarative sentences, because we're supposed to end our sentences on a down, but also, oh gosh, where's that thought going? Sorry, the perimenopause. It convinces you. It's persuasive. It doesn't tell you what it is. It tells you what you're supposed to be thinking about it. It tells you, and this matters because blah, blah, blah. And my God, like, can we stop trying to persuade people every time we're giving a freaking cookie recipe? And that's what turns me off. And that's what makes me feel like your robot wrote your arguments, when I start to sense that like, don't, also because my neurodiversity includes a little bit of like, don't tell me what to do. It's so very, very sensitive to being told what to do, even if it's, emotionally, or you're supposed to understand this way. I'm always going to be like, why? Going back to what I started at the beginning, I like to argue.
I saw somebody the other day refer to another characteristic of AI writing as tension cosplay, where like they ratchet up the intensity and the and how important everything is, and it's like, everything's not that important. Like, and if everything's that important, then nothing is important. I mean, that's kind of one of the core things that our human ear listens for is change. It's switched. So like, if everything is at this fever pitch of like hardcore sales and persuasion and everything matters so much, right? Or like, it's quietly destroying your blog. Is it quietly destroying? Like, is it genuinely quietly destroying? It genuinely matters that it's quietly destroying.
I love that. I love that we're touching on this, and literally, right? We're scratching it, because I want you who's watching this or listening to this to really think about what ingredients you're putting into your work, your brand, your reputation as a leader. Like, to being intentional. We've talked a lot about intentionality. We've talked a lot about, right, what you are bringing, what your edges are, what your perspective is, because that's the most powerful thing that you can bring to the table. And so we have to be really cautious about what we're putting in the mix. And even now, right, like, I've been playing around with AI as it relates to like my, updating my website and stuff. And it's like, it is like this fine line to walk. And I feel like after this conversation, because I'm all about authenticity, as you ladies are, right? Like it's like we got, like, we're doing ourselves a disservice if we're trying to be anything other than what we are and bring our own ideas to the table. And so it's just, it's a little bit of a cautionary tale. And it is such an important input into the work, right? Of sharing yourselves, of putting your best foot forward in terms of your objectives in whatever meeting, whatever thing that you're doing, that I feel like we couldn't not like put that in the mix of this work. And I know we've covered a lot of ground. We've touched on a lot of things. And so I'm curious, are we missing something big that you want to bring up now? Again, keeping in mind, how do we help the person out there who's watching, who's really intent on being the best leader, the best people leader, influencing change in their organizations? Like, are we missing anything that you want them to know in this realm of executive presence and in this realm of public speaking?
The one I would say, and I feel very strongly about this, is even when we're talking about intimidation and power, it does not have to be a zero-sum game. And I talk about this with physical presence, that we, if we do that thing of like, I'm massive, that invites people into battle in this like winner or battle to the death, whatever. And if we shrink, that also provokes people to attack. So, keeping in this, which is right now I'm seeing in this, like, let's have more masculinity. It seems to be all about, let's make this the cage match. Every conversation is a cage match. That does not have to be the case. And that goes back to what I'm saying about like your own internal hierarchy. What is the power you can have in your own body that doesn't require you to have to participate in somebody else's status games, but doesn't, still is in the context of the given circumstances. So you're not completely off base, but you're just not playing in that realm. I think that's for me, the most empowering way to go into any situation, with this possibility. You might be right. Doesn't mean I think you're right, but you might be right. We are sharing space. We are going to get to this mutual pool of meaning together, rather than me thinking about every conversation as, a prelude to a bitch slap or something like that.
Yeah.
I have 42 things that are competing for prominence in my mind right now. So I'm gonna try to be very as specific as Julie was here. As someone who cared very much about meeting other people's standards for a very long time, and as someone who, as an elder millennial, looks out at this world and thinks like, wow, things are really different than I expected them to be, and has some big existential thoughts on that. I want people to be able to pull out enough from the water that they swim in to see what color it is, and to see if you still want to swim in that water, and to see if those standards still are useful to you. Because I think there is a case to be made for our ability to infiltrate toxic systems and change them from within. And we could have another very long conversation about the use case for that, right? But there's also the like, what are my standards? What is the standard that I want for myself, that honors my core values, that honors the mark I want to make in the world, and that allows me to imagine a better future? Because that, I think, is what so often gets us caught in the status quo, is that we can't imagine what's next other than it being either the same or worse. And our ability to imagine a world where we have a more expansive definition of executive presence, or even of authenticity, that's what has driven Julie and me for a dozen years, is that we can see that world so clearly. And so we can keep driving to it. So like, what I want to say to people right now is like, what is the world that you envision? What are the standards that you're currently meeting? And like, where do those standards that you're currently meeting not jive with actually what you want to see in the future? And how can you strategically break a few rules? Maybe like just little targeted experiments. Just break some rules, friends. Like, because as long as it's not hurting anyone, like who says you can't, wear color in an office where everybody dresses in tasteful neutral? Who says that you can't, use a slang word that no one's ever heard of before? Who says is my question. Like, this is my burgeoning inner rebel that I have. Like, I can still put on the polish for days, but this inner rebel has done me so much more good in my life than my ability to be polished and perfect.
Oh God, and I just gotta say that, but what you both were adding right at this, moment is like question the status quo, right? Like, question the game that you're playing and play the game that you want to win. Like, which
Yes.
also requires seeing what that is for you. I love that. Oh my gosh, just see. This is why I love talking to you. I love this conversation. I so appreciate your time to come on this podcast because I know how valuable it is. Like, you guys you're brilliant. And how can people get in touch with you? Like, what's, for folks who are like, I want to talk to you. I want to bring you in. I need to work with you. What's the best way they can do that?
You can come to our website, vitalvoicetraining.com. Nice and easy. For social media, y'all, we're hanging out on LinkedIn right now and really thoroughly enjoying it. Like, our Instagram still exists. We are really never there anymore. But LinkedIn right now, to me, has the flavor of early 2010s Twitter before it became a fascist hellscape, where you can actually yes, you're still going to have to wade through some AI crap and some, people being weird business bro versions of themselves. But there are genuinely interesting people talking about interesting things, and you can have a real conversation with them by just hopping in the comment section. And we have made actual IRL in real life friends on LinkedIn lately. So please come and follow us on LinkedIn. We are also doing open office hours every month right now because we know that it's a crazy time. We know a lot of people are between jobs, are looking for what's next, have something high stakes that they might want a friendly audience to get it in front of. So once a month, we're doing just an hour where it's like, come hang out with us on Zoom and we'll talk. You can ask your questions. You can practice your stuff. It's been consistently really joyful and full of interesting people. So Tosca will make sure that for the show notes that you guys get whatever the next.
Yes, absolutely. All of these links will be in the show notes, and I have attended those office hours. They are fantastic. What a service. Get in there while they're doing it, because I'm sure this won't last forever.
And sign up for our newsletter.
Yes, I was just going to say. Yes. The newsletter is spectacular.
That's that's our incubator for ideas. That is exactly where we're testing out new things. That is where we get into our listen to where our brains go. Whatever little topic is niggling on us. We're really proud of our newsletter. And yes, please come sign up, and you can do that on our website, vitalvoicetraining.com.
Yeah, I second that. It will also be in the show notes in terms of that direct link for the newsletter sign up.
Beautiful.
So yes.
Thanks, Tosca.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. The pleasure's been mine. And I'm just so excited for the listeners to have gotten this wisdom, to have planted so many seeds about how you can show up in the next level of you, in the pursuit of the next level of your leadership. So thank you again. And ciao for now on the Unlock Lab.